I would like to welcome you all to MSU's webinar today. We are doing a webinar on a safe lifting solution for those with myositis and are prone to falling with IndeeLift. We are very excited to have them here today, and we're excited that you all could join. I would like to introduce Michael Martin. He is the Vice President of Marketing for IndeeLift. He has the responsibility of leading the company's integrated communications, marketing, and social strategies. Michael, please take it away and tell us all about the fantastic IndeeLift.
Thank you, Jessica. It's an honor to be here and to present to you yourself and to your members. The myositis group is near and dear to our hearts. And so my intention here today is really to give you an overview of IndeeLift, its applications, its solutions, and how it can really help in the day-to-day life of your members, for those especially that have mobility issues, that are prone to falling, and the burden that it places on themselves, of course, but also their caregivers, their loved ones, their neighbors, and such. So I'm going to jump into a very quick PowerPoint presentation. I promise you, I'm not going to PowerPoint you to death, dear members, but I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview quickly, and then I'll get into a live demonstration of our IndeeLift product right now. Right here, this is our unit, and so let me jump over to a very quick PowerPoint to talk about IndeeLift here. So this is IndeeLift's mission, really, is to help those who are prone to falling get back up safely and to regain their dignity and independence, and also for safe patient handling to help those that have to help those who have fallen to get back up. How do we keep them safe as well? So it's very common that when people fall down, they're not really hurt. And based on research from things like CDC and OSHA, about 80% of the falls don't result in an injury. They just have the inability to get up and they struggle, so they have to call for help. Sometimes they're able to get up on their own, or many times a caregiver, a neighbor has to rush over and help them up. Their world suddenly becomes a little smaller. They have a fear of falling, of walking, of leaving the chair. Repetitive falls can result in a tipping point that maybe they have to go in assisted living and so forth. And we want to eliminate that. We want to get that fall, that frantic event, into becoming a non-event. But conversely, when somebody is on the ground too, it presents a risk to the caregivers. When you manually lift somebody up, there's a potential of injury to both the person who's falling and also to the caregiver, of hurting their back. And there's actually studies that have been proven that caregivers have a high propensity of going on workers' compensation. They're roughly 4 to 5 times higher of hurting their back. And so we're trying to avoid that as well. And not only that, there's a cost to society if the most common remedy is to call 911, to have a lift assist call to come out to simply lift the person up. Very common in my local community, as it is across the U.S. So that is I'm sure this resonates with many of your members. So the solution is, these are just a visual of our lifts. We have lifts for the home. We have lifts for professional healthcare and for EMS as well, for fire rigs. And the solution is really to use our device to eliminate all those manual lifting requirements. And this is just a simple pictorial. Our unit can be used to simply lift up individuals who live alone. Those have the ability to scoot from room to room. They can lift themselves up. And for those that live in a wheelchair or commonly may fall out, or they need help with lateral transfers, our unit can be used for those. And we have safety belts, which I'll demonstrate shortly, for those that may not have the core strength or trunk strength to hold on to the unit. It'll keep them nice and secure on our IndeeLift. And so what I'm going to do is jump out of the PowerPoint and to kind of give you a live demonstration and to talk about the features. First of all, this is our IndeeLift. This unit is rated for up to 300 to 400 pounds. We have different models for different weight capacity. It has the lift assist handles, which is meant to help stabilize an individual and help them scoot onto the platform. Our seat here, this is the platform that the individual would sit on, and it's raised by our lithium-ion battery. And this unit, the beauty of the IndeeLift is that it can be brought to wherever the individual has fallen. It's totally portable. As you can see, it looks very similar to a dolly. It's very portable, has a very tight turning radius. And the beauty of the small platform is it fits into very small or tight places, such as a bathroom, such as small rooms and such, so it can get into wherever the individual has fallen. This battery, since it is lithium ion, has many lifts in it, anywhere from 10 to 15 lifts, depending on the weight capacity. It is operated by a corded remote, which can be placed anywhere on the unit for self-operation or by the caregiver. Very simply operated. There's an up and a down button. The unit is raised very slowly, and as you can see, it's designed that way to make sure that those who are being lifted are very comfortable in the speed and also in the progression of being able to stand up. As you can see, it lowers at the same speed. These are the two safety belts, as I mentioned. They go both over your chest and your trunk. They can be crisscrossed. They're not a requirement to be used. It's always on the assessment of the individual. In addition, for this unit, this is the one that's is commonly used by people with myositis or IBM. This has removable lift assist arms, which can be placed on an upper level here. And the reason we would want to do that is because this unit, in addition to lifting a person from the floor, you can stand on the unit and you can do standing lifts. For those that have the inability, for example, to get into their bed is probably the most common example, where they can simply just wheel this up to their bed. If you can imagine the bed behind me, and they just would simply just sit on the bed as well. So this is for standing transfer. The unit is simply just raised up to the higher level. To enter, you just can remove it, and it'll just enter this way. Could be used individually or by the caregiver. So those are kind of the features of the applications. I'll show you one other nice application or feature on this is the ability for the seat to tilt downwards as well. We have two locking pins down here. So as the seat rises slowly, the seat will rotate forward. So it's a very simple and elegant solution to those that are prone to falling. They can suddenly not have to worry about calling 911 or frantically calling friends or caregivers to lift them up. This unit will take all the manual lifting out of the equation. And in brief, I brought out my special banner for this presentation. One of our first units, this particular model, was evaluated by a gentleman named Kevin Dooley. Kevin has IBM. He helped evaluate independently the units, And that is posted on YouTube, and hopefully, Jessica, you can share that with your members. But Kevin did a very thorough independent review of the IndeeLift in his day-to-day operation and how it helped him in a lot of applications. So this is a picture of Kevin here. So what I want to do right now, Kim, if you can come in. Let me see if you can see this. You can. So this is my trusty assistant, Kevin here. So the most common application is if I'm a person that has fallen, the unit can be brought over by my caregiver, who would simply, the person has to get onto their rear end. The unit is wheeled directly behind me. And all I need to do is really scoot the 12 inches or so. The seat is beveled, so it's easy to slide on. I use these lift assist handles to help myself on. And I'm very stable in this, hitting the up button. And as you can see, I'm being raised at a very slow and safe speed. As the lift is rising, I'm slowly lifting or positioning my feet under me.
Which is something the caregiver may need to have to assist with, depending on leg control.
Yes, so this particular unit raises up to a full 30 inches, which is a standing height. Or if so we're going to go all the way up. So as I'm rising, I'm slowly putting my feet under. And as it gets to the level that is whatever is appropriate for the person to feel comfortable to stand, I can simply just get up and walk away. As you can see, no manual lifting by the caregiver. Very simple solution there. And I want to talk about the belts very quickly. So belts are pretty common in the MSU community. The belts are quite simple. There's latches on the bottom. And the top. So for those that do not have the trunk strength and do not have the strength to maintain an upright position, the belts are deployed and used. And these will keep the individual from gliding off. And same thing with the trunk.
There's an upper extremity, or excuse me, an upper trunk level as well.
Yes. So, in fact, if you watch the demonstration by Kevin, he uses both straps just to make sure he is secure on the unit to the right. And once he's at the right height, you just simply disconnect the belts. And walk away and you're fine. So that is the deployment of the belts. It's an option again. It's always about patient assessment, whether or not they need the belts. In this particular model, belts are standard, and I would believe most of our MSU community orders the units with belts. What I want to do now is show another very common feature. If people fall, you just can't make the assumption they're going to be up and walking. And so, make sure I get this on the camera, right? So if patients that do not have the ability to just stand up and walk away, they either don't have the strength to, or in many cases, we have people who are in a wheelchair. They just have maybe fallen out of the wheelchair. Regardless, the ability to be raised to a wheelchair height. All you need to do is simply a simple lateral transfer. You raise the unit up about an inch or two above the seat or the wheelchair, and you have a little bit of, we call it a gravity assist. So in this particular case, you can slide over to the chair, the wheelchair, a couch, wherever. And again, it eliminates all the manual lifting by your caregiver and yourself, saving everybody potential harm. So that is our lateral transfer. Some of the applications for lateral transfers are for those individuals that have difficulty getting on and off of couches. You can use it to aid really transferring from any device, or excuse me, for any piece of furniture. Kitchen tables, couches, commodes is another common application. So this device can be integrated into your daily life just to help move yourself from point A to point B without having a caregiver potentially to help strain, to lift you, and to transfer. I want to talk a little bit about self-operation. We have a lot of IndeeLift users that may live alone. If you have the ability to scoot from one, common question is what happens if I fall and the unit is in another room? It's real common for people who do that. They have the ability to either crawl or scoot themselves from one room to another, and they simply can lift themselves up. There it is. And they do that by attaching the cord remote, and they just leave it on the lift assist. So they can scoot themselves over to the unit and they can hit up themselves to get up to a standing position. So that's a very common question, but again, it's always based on patient assessment and things like that. So that is the IndeeLift presentation, and I would like to open it up for questions. And I want to again remind the MSU members there that there is an independent video created by Kevin Dooley, and does a fantastic job of giving you all the applications and how he uses IndeeLift and has integrated into his daily life. It really is a wonderful testimonial on the unit. So we're here to help all your members, and I'll just turn it over to you, Jessica, to see if there's questions that have come in.
There are, and I do want to say that I did post the link to the Kevin Dooley's video in the chat for those of you that have not seen it. And I know we've talked a lot about it. It is a fantastic video, and he uses the lift far more than just as a way of getting up off the floor. He uses it in lots of different scenarios and situations. Way more than I thought possible. So that's a fantastic video, and I definitely have not checked it out. Please do so. And again, that link is in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then Manuel.
I have a question that came from the initially early from the audience, and let's get to work on those ones. What if the person has no core strength or even upper body strength? So how do you prevent that from falling forward? Is that by using?
If somebody does not have core strength, that's when you want to use the safety belts that I mentioned earlier. In fact, if you watch Kevin Dooley's, he has a very similar situation. He does not have the core strength. He needs the belts to stand. So that would be the solution for that. Because if you're being raised and you don't have the ability to have a proper trunk control to stabilize yourself, you would need the belts.
Yeah, that's key, I think.
Absolutely, yes.
And one of the things I learned from your thing is that there are so many other uses for the IndeeLift that it's not only being in the floor, right? So we always think about only using it when we're in the floor, and there are actually many other uses that we need to consider when we are actually having everyday life from couches or from everything else. So I think that's an important part.
That's correct. Fall recovery is by far the most common application. It's a safety device, but we have learned from a lot of users such as Kevin this is how they're using it in their daily life. So the big issue is just mobility. How do we safely pick people up? How do we safely do the lateral transfers? Because our biggest concern too is for the caregivers. People are very heavy, even if they don't weigh much. When you're on the ground, when they're on the couch and you need to physically help them move, the risk of injury to their backs is really high. So that eliminates a lot of the potential injuries out there.
That's critical. Yeah, and I think that's important to consider because it's heavyweight.
Caregivers like us, CNAs like us, those people who care for the others are finding us. They use traditional gait belts. Even if that's with good proper mechanics of moving people, repetition over time will take its toll on somebody's back. So we eliminate a lot of those risks.
And I have a question from Cherise. I think they said this is great, but it seems a bit complicated. I know it's complicated for the person getting it, for the operator who is learning all the different tricks about how to use it. I suppose you have to learn how to use it. How long it takes for somebody who actually become really good at actually using the chair and training a person who is actually going to be there?
I think your question is how quickly can I learn to use the units?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I think because it's complicated first. I think it's
as you can see, it is not complicated. The only complicated device you need to learn is how to use the remote. And I'm not sure you can see it. You have an up button and a down button. The other is what else? The battery. It has a cord. You just plug it in.
Yeah.
So even one thing I forgot to mention was even if the battery is dead, you forgot to charge it, you can still plug it into the wall and it'll operate. So you never have to worry about having a dead battery. But
do you recommend to charge every day?
Sorry?
Do you recommend to charge every day?
Yeah, so our recommendations is to leave it charged. If you want to leave it in the middle of the room, just as in case commonplace, that's fine. And you would probably have to charge it once or twice a month. At the most, we have a light indicator, giving you disposition of fully charged or not. So again, it depends. For people who use it all the time, you would definitely charge it all the time. For those that have very infrequent falls, you would maybe charge it once a month or twice a month, things like that. So it all depends on usage, and it will remind you when it needs to be charged. So, but other than that, there's no maintenance on it. It's powder coated. It can be cleaned. It's very durable. It's actually powered by a device called an actuator, which really requires no maintenance. The battery requires no maintenance other than charging. And the other operation is just how do I take these lift assist arms out or slots. So as you can see, the learning curve is very simple. Those who are, and most people have experience moving or using a dolly, I should say, or a device like this. So as you can see, it's not complicated. This device weighs anywhere from 60 to 70 pounds. So it is very stable. And another common question is, can I bring this with me when I go to places? The answer is yes. This can fit in the back of an SUV, for example. It does require a couple people to lift it up and to put it into the back of an SUV, things like that. Or so it can be brought to any locations. It can be brought outside. People fall outside in the garden as well. And so this can be wheeled out. These don't have very large diameter wheels for that, but in the case of just getting somebody up, yes, I've heard many stories of dad falling in the garden and having the unit wheeled out there to pick him up. So in fact, I think that's Kevin Dooley has that in his video of working in the garden. So he uses it simply to lower himself to get into the level. People who have fallen just are afraid to get on the floor. People use it to get on the floor for their children, their grandchildren, and get themselves back up. It's really kind of opens their world. It's a life-changing tool for many that have limitations on their mobility. So,
very good. I have another question from Lori, who was very good attending many of our mobility seminars this fall. She says, using this to get from the floor hasn't worked for me because my arm strength is not as strong enough to lift me my bottom off the floor in order to get onto the seat. This presupposes that the patient has arm strength, and if the space is tight, there is no way for the caregiver to get to the patient, maneuver onto the lift. You see that as a drawback for people without a lot of upper extremity strength?
that is where, so the options are somebody with limited arm strength and they're on the floor. So then you start getting into what are my options to get this person up from the floor if they have fallen. That's when you get into the manual grabbing and lifting. There's other solutions out there, such as sling lifts or hover mats, air mattresses. So there's other solutions. But if the individual, and those require, manipulation as well. And those don't, and a lot of those devices don't even have handles as well. So I always fall back to assessing the patient to make sure this device will work for them. But this was designed, especially with the belts, for people in those situations, especially with IBM, myositis that don't have strength. Now, would it apply for a person who has very, weakened state? It still would get them off the ground, and it still has the belts, and you can still do the lateral transfer, things like that. So it still solves that problem of how do I lift this person up? And with our belts and with the technology, we can lift them up safely.
Yeah, I think it just gets into how safely you can squeeze them into the unit and make sure that they actually move into the unit.
I think it's also important to remember that not every device is right for each person. So they're not a one size fits all, right? There are going to be some extenuating circumstances where this may not be the right device for you at that time. But this also might be a really great device for people who do have the space and you do have a caregiver that can help position you onto it to then lift you up. So I think that's important to remember as well.
Very good point, Jessica. There's such a wide range. And we talk, of course, about IBM myositis, but people with MS, people with vertigo, people, old knees, bad knees, whatever, it just falls happen all the time. And we always tell people, here's a tool, and you do the assessment, and then you go from there. So that's the big thing. And so I always fall back to, just assess yourself, have your caregiver assess you, and then we'll go from there. But if somebody's on the ground and just needs to be picked up, and it's a common problem, this is a really good solution. And you can, obviously make your judgment from there.
Good. So I have another question from Alison, and I think also has to do with a bit of a safety. Does the seat automatically tilt forward? Or is that...
Yes, let me talk about the tilting features. So actually this feature was suggested, I believe, by Kevin. So there's two locking pins on the bottom here.
Mm-hmm.
So the seat, I think you can see this.
Yeah, yes.
You can see the seat rotates, and that just helps as you are being risen up. The seat is flat, but as it's being raised, just by the natural you can see the seat will start rotating and that just is an aid to standing up. It just kind of helps you get on your feet. So this is
if you don't want that, you just keep the locking pins in place and it won't tilt.
Lock it, Exactly, Jessica.
Fabulous.
So for the standing feature, like I showed you earlier, those of course would be locked as well. So I delivered a unit to a person with IBM a few months ago. She likes this unit simply because she was unable to get into her bed. She couldn't lift her leg up to a step stool any longer. And so her main application was to just do a standing transfer to get onto her bed, which was a little higher than the average bed, and that helped her get off. That's all, you just need to be raised a good 6-8 inches at the most. And that was one of her main applications, was just getting in her bed.
Yeah, and I think I have a comment from Lori, which I think she has the unit. So she said the unit is heavy, so she's given a tip here. If you're using a dolly, it's hard to tilt because of the weight and the small wheels. So you may want to experiment with partially raising the lift in order to get the weight distribution in the right place to tilt it back to move it.
That is correct. Well, we got smart members out there, Jessica.
Yes.
So when you have to, yes, this unit is all metal. It is heavy by design for stability. So when you do transfer the unit and roll it around from one point to another, we always recommend that you raise the seat up a few inches to get the total weight off the ground. So if you were to wheel it, this might be a little higher, but it's much easier to roll when it's maybe this height.
Yeah.
So that's a very, very good point.
There is another question from Larry. How easy is this to move a person to another location? How hard it would be to push on carpet?
I'm sorry, how hard would it be to
move a person to another location and to push it on carpet? I think it's moving the person when you is sitting, I suppose Larry is asking. So the person is sitting.
Well, it rolls fine on carpet, and there should be, obviously it will roll on copper, not as smooth as a hardwood floor, but you can still, yeah, I've never had anybody say it's difficult to move on carpet.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be too concerned with that. We have very large wheels on this as well. I don't know if you can see this, but when the unit is flat, the wheels are not touching the ground. They're actually off the ground. So that just prevents any sliding or whatnot. So as you're sliding onto the unit, it should not be moving back because the wheels are off the floor.
Michael, I have another final question that came before. And it's like, how can I afford this share? So I don't think we have discussed the price. And then is this covered by any type of insurance, anything, or is this something only private pay?
Okay, good, very good common question. So the price ranges from $2,300 and up. However, we're having a very good holiday special right now. So if you call in, there's fantastic pricing. So I would recommend if somebody's interested before the end of the year to call in. And there's some great deals to be had right now. As far as the insurance, so if you're a veteran, the VA will, if you're prescribed and eligible, the VA will actually pay for a unit. So we like the VA. Veterans love us because they can get a unit for free. They just go through prosthetics, the local VA clinic or hospital. Private insurance and Medicare is a little inconsistent, I guess, but we do have documented cases where somebody, we just spoke to a woman yesterday who has neuropathy in her feet, that she was prone to falling. She was able to get Medicare to cover 80%. Because she qualifies under option B on Medicare. Reimbursed 80% of the unit. So and so we're continuing to make strides in Medicare. I think the biggest thing is always just getting your doctor prescriptions. There's Medicare forms to fill out and send in. And if you qualify, then we have documented cases of Medicare covering the unit. So the we fall in the category of lifts, which is a very broad category. Many people have never heard of IndeeLift, so it's a little bit of education to both doctors and insurance. You know, everybody's familiar with the sling lifts and other devices. So even though we are a lift, we're different. We are much more of an integrated tool into quality of living versus being a recovery device that's maybe overkill, such as those other devices. So it's a lot of education, but people love the story, and they definitely see it being value and being covered by insurances, Medicare, the VA being probably the preeminent leader in taking care of our veterans. They recognize very early this is a great device. And like I mentioned earlier on the call, it just keeps them at home longer. They're not, it benefits everybody when that happens.
So Michael, if somebody wants to talk to their doctor, suppose they may try to get Medicare, so they should talk to their doctor about having a prescription for a lift. Is that what basically goes on?
Yes, there's, and this is something, if you can, Jessica, you can always have them call me directly on that, but there's definitely forms to fill out, doctor prescriptions to write, and then you proceed from there. It's like a claim and reimbursement type of situation. But it's those are the two things: getting prescribed, filling out the form, submitting it, and if there's any follow-up that's needed, we can support those efforts too.
Oh, I have a final question for Lori. Lori, I think, has one, and she wants you to do a demo. So she wants you to show if somebody can show you moving while someone is sitting in the unit. So you are sitting and the other person tried to move you.
Oh, like to transport me?
Yeah, I think so. Is that?
No, let's, for this unit.
It's not. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Transports, we have, so onto my right here, we have a larger unit.
Yeah.
This one actually, and this is something I didn't really talk about, this is a much bigger seat. This will live up to 600 pounds.
Okay.
We do short transports as well. So that is an option. If you go to our website at IndeeLift.com, you'll see a variety. This unit, as I demonstrated, goes up to 30 inches. The ones that we have units that only go up to 21 inches, which is a chair height, and that's high enough for many people. So I think for the MSU community, I think the full standing height is what is the most common and required. So this is called the FTS, which stands for floor to stand. It's the FTS 400, because this particular unit will lift 400 pounds. So FTS 400 is what you would be looking for probably the most common for your community members. If that is not, if there's heavier individuals out there or just want a wider seat, it's called the FTS 600 for 600 pounds, which is also an option for them too. You can see it's bigger. This one actually is used by a lot of professional healthcare providers because they like the unit because it also kind of keeps their staff safe and gives them, this is their lift protocol in many cases.
Yeah, so I think the important issue is like, should this unit be actually used to move people around on it? So it's maybe it's not
transport.
Yeah, the transport.
Short transports are an option. If somebody, for example, needs to be transported, but not for long distances. If you go to, if you see, we have actually on our website, there's a demonstration of somebody having a short transport on our FTS 600. It'll show them. So, but it's not really just for short distances is what we recommend. If somebody maybe has fallen in a bathroom, for example, you can potentially get them out. And you'll see how that unit, you just buckle them in, but it's really dependent on the caregiver as well, the comfort level. It's just a lot of factors going into that decision before you transport.
And I think we are done with all the questions.
Wonderful. Hopefully I was able to give a decent demonstration and talk about the product. And it's, again, not a complicated product, but it solves a very common issue of what happens when I fall down and the craziness that happens around it. We're very, I think we solve a lot of problems with IndeeLift. So I appreciate your time, Jessica, Emmanuel, for reaching out to us. My contact information, you can go to IndeeLift.com, obviously. Jessica has my contact info as well. You can call me directly. You can call our 800 number. It's very common that people call just to ask more questions, and that's why we're here. So be happy to.
And I think also for the IBM community, I think if you are falling too often, I think you should also look at something else, because you really need to be careful. You know, sometimes falling is not dangerous, but many times you actually can have concussion, something else. So if you are falling more often than you expected, you really need to be looking at other things. This is great for helping you stand, but at the same time, we need to look for safety and avoid falls at all costs.
Yes. Yeah, falling's common, but you gotta really make sure the assessment is made before lifts are used, things like that. So we're really a tool really for the most common falls that people just need help getting back up.
Well, we at MSU would really like to thank you, Michael, for taking the time out today to spend with our members to show your wonderful products. And I'd like to thank all of our members that participated today. Thank you for the great questions. Thank you for showing up and watching today's demonstration. I've put quite a lot of information in the chat, so please feel free to take a look at that, including that video by Kevin Dooley. And with that, I just want to thank you guys all for being here today, and we hope to see you guys all next time at our next webinar.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Good days.
Have a wonderful afternoon, evening, wherever you are.